Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Subplot, of course, a podcast discussing a new science fiction literary work every month by casual fans just like you. I'm Stavros, and with me is someone whose job primarily consists of not murdering his Padawans, Charlie. Say hi,
Yay!
Charlie.
Hello.
Also with me is Vincent, who analyzes the effectiveness of Bacta tank use. Say hi, Vincent.
That's kind of cool, actually. I wish I did do that.
And finally, we're also joined by John, who used all of his engineering genius to design the waste extraction system for the Death Star. Say hi,
Hey, hello, it did not cause the destruction of the Death Star, so I must have done something right.
That's what you say, at least.
That's the big.
All right, for episode 5, we're going to talk about Catalyst, a Rogue One novel written by James Luceno and published in 2016. As usual, you should be prepared for spoilers, because we're going to be talking about not only the book, but comparing to the film Rogue One. You should probably be prepared for that as well. All right, so going into the plot. So the plot follows Orson Krennic, that same guy from the film, a conniving and crafty officer in the Republic Corps of Engineers as he manipulates Galen Erso, a brilliant scientist with a specialization in kyber crystal energy generation, into working on the Death Star's super laser. The plot follows them through the end of the Clone Wars, right up to the beginning of the Rogue One film, which of course is right before Episode 4: A New Hope. So let's jump right into the topics. So the first one I have here, I feel like the main character of this book is definitely Orson Krennic, which is kind of weird because he is kind of the bad guy of this film. You kind of just follow him doing all of his evil, morally questionable stuff. How did you guys feel about that? I feel like it's more than just, more focus on him versus, any of the Orsos or even Tarkin, who's in this novel. How did you guys feel about that?
All right, so I'll start it off. So I think that, for one, I read the book before I saw Rogue One, the movie. So when I was reading the book, I thought that it wasn't so much focused on him as it was focused on, technology. The book was the main character is technology, kyber crystals, and energy generation. The second most important character is Krennic. And Krennic, to me, was he was bipolar for some reason. I felt like he had moments where he was intelligent and moments where he was just completely stupid. It was okay, I'm doing a great job of manipulating this guy. Now let me go to his wife and threaten her with death, and maybe that'll make things better. And I was like, what the hell? What type of strategy was that? And then in Rogue One, he's like, okay, well, I found you, and I have overwhelming superior troops. So the best way would probably be to capture your family and hold them hostage and make you do the research. Oh no, I'm going to kill all of them. And I was like, what the hell? You just killed his wife? That was probably the only card he could have used to make him actually do research for legit. And I was like, he's either brilliant or he's a dumbass or he's bipolar. And I kind of conclude bipolar. So,
he's a Star Wars villain, which means in one way he just has to be evil, regardless of how clever or qualified or competent he otherwise is.
Yeah,
he has to lose. That's what needs to happen at some point.
I think at one point in the novel, he literally throws his gloves away and goes, Galen!
Yeah, that is the end of the book. I was just like, we need a little more of this drama in the movie, but you know what? Seems cheesy and maybe not the most appropriate way to deal with this right now.
What do you think, John?
I thought that if there was a main character, it was probably Galen and him, basically. I'm not sure they went deep into either of them. I kind of agree a little bit with Vince. I think that the story sort of revolves a little bit around itself. If there's a lead character here, it's sort of the two of them, their duality against each other.
Yeah, I was going to say it's kind of just the politics itself. It's the broader politics of the Empire versus just his politics with Galen specifically.
I think that's true. Yeah, I thought they were good characters. I mean, they were you were pitting a person who was exceedingly righteous and principled in Galen versus this other person who I guess they were trying to make him Machiavellian, where he was just I'm good at these skills. I really want to rise in the ranks of the Empire, take advantage of this opportunity.
Like,
I want to do whatever it takes.
Like the book does a much better job of showing just how like straight up ambitious he is than like even the movie, because they refer to that a bunch in the movie. It's like, it's trying to get his way and like move up a little bit, but the book is almost like half just about that, like him trying to move his way up the ranks in the Empire.
Okay. Well, we kind of touched on, this next topic, even just talking about Krennic, but actually, one of the main points of enjoyment I got out of this book was you get Galen, and Lyra aren't in the military. They're not in the Empire. They're not part of the rebels. They're kind of just regular dudes for a lot of this book. And you kind of get see how they perceive what's going on with the with the Republic, ending going from the end of the Clone War all the way up through, the establishment of the Empire and stuff. So, but that's kind of the key thing I got out of the book. It's the main thing. I was like, oh yeah, this is actually pretty cool. But how do you guys feel about Galen kind of just doesn't really care about galactic politics for like a big portion of this book. He's like, I'm not getting involved, and then he kind of gets involved, but it's for the greater good. Do you guys feel like that kind of, gives some background as to why, the Empire is actually able to come about in the Star Wars universe?
Yeah, it seems like they just kind of had him be like blatant, like, I am a scientist for science and not the military, blah, 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 archetype. Not necessarily as like an example of people in the Empire in general, because it seems like that's more what Obit was to me, where he's more like, even if he's a smuggler, he's still more just kind of like the guy outside of it all, whereas these other people are either in the Empire or rebels or like, even high-ranking scientists.
Yeah, if anything, he's kind of the exception, to be honest, because it seems like all of his peers are more than willing to join either the Imperial cause because they're defending the Empire or simply because it's good for their careers or their scientific ambitions. They're willing to join and be part of the machinations of this, what was the Republic and now becomes essentially the Empire. So I think that he's sort of an outlier in this case.
So it's funny, they work for the Empire, but they're all very clearly, like, nobody is like, I'm going to be the guy to make the giant death laser. They're mostly just kind of like, wait, what are we actually doing? And then we'll get to that later. But
the higher genogens and droids for the boring non-super laser stuff, apparently.
Yes. But even like the main scientist, it's just like, I'm doing like shield stuff, I guess. It's like nobody's really in on it besides like Krennic and Tarkin and like the big Empire guys. Like there's no like lead scientist who's like, let's build a death laser. I just need to know the one thing about the crystals. Or something like that, besides Krennic himself, who's very clearly made to be made out as not scientific genius, more like political, but on the science side.
I kind of agree with you, Stav. I think the book had sort of a veneer or a wallpaper of backstory of what's going on between this time where the rebellion was being. Gives you another viewpoint. The movies tell you're obviously you can see the takeover of the Emperor, and in this sense, it gives you like a third-party perspective of the guy on the street. And you hear some news clips, or you hear some information about how the Empire is, the Republic is transitioning into the Empire, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Or yeah, just even the excuse about anarchists, or because I've always mentioned it's hilarious in the movies how it goes from like nice Republic setting design, and then the Emperor gets scarred, and immediately the next scene he's in an all-white room with the red guards, and you're just like, what? This happened really fast? Like, what?
That is true, but I mean, even it does seem like, I mean, I'm just going to go back to this. I do feel like everyone's kind of, the opinion of the general public seems to be like, well, it's for our protection because they just have come out of a war, and that made it super, hit some notes with me just because you can see the slide. It didn't seem, even Galen, he seems like it takes the direct threat of Krennic against Lyra in order for him to actually wake up, It's like, taking, removing these guys' sanctuary on Coruscant, that's fine. Strip mining planets, that's fine. Oh no, he's done the magic thing of threatening my wife. Oh, right. Oh god, this Empire, I guess it really is evil.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like Coruscant itself, it's weird because some of it's like police state craziness, but some of it's like it's just having a giant party, like in the last chapter. It's like business as usual for most people.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that. Is it so? If there's an overarching theme to Star Wars, it's that the core planets, Coruscant being maybe the most important one, is they're all sort of politically connected, or at least they're tacitly approving of the Empire in some ways. Whereas there's these outer rim planets that are either independent, or they're corporate owned, or they're just desolate rural places that seem to be against the Empire. So what is that, like a rural versus urban dichotomy that they're trying to build there? Or
I mean, you can definitely see that in the films because Luke is the literal farm boy. But you think you are seeing some of that in Catalyst too?
I think that they just hit it some more because you notice that the stand that maybe the seed corn for the rebellion or the first rebellion fight where Tarkin is sort of stranded in the book. This is probably about halfway through. He gets sort of stranded at that planet because the Haas and the rest of the folks at I can't the name of the planet off the top of my head.
The salient systems or something.
Yeah, salient systems, yeah, where they take a stand, but they're an independent system out in the Outer Rim. They talk about how they're in a derogatory way about the core systems and about the Empire and how their interests are not aligned with the Outer Rim. The Outer Rim being essentially a euphemism for rural, I guess, at least from what I can tell.
Yeah, I mean, there are some Coruscant cosmopolitan types against those backwards corporate types. So I could definitely see that. Well, so let's move on to a different topic here. So, John, we were talking before the show a little bit. The Empire in both the Catalyst and Rogue One, they really love killing engineers. And I feel like you probably have an opinion here since this is literally your profession. So let's go over this. So in Catalyst, there are these people, these outposts trying to replicate Orson's work, and they either accidentally or purposefully get horribly murdered. And then actually in Rogue One as well, they just wipe out Galen Ursa's team. I mean, obviously
it's all old people.
They're really old engineers, but I mean, aside from this is obviously supposed to be a plot device. It's Krennic is pure evil, but this has got to cause some problems for them long term.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm gonna leave the moral implications. I'm gonna put that on the side, obviously. So I'm not gonna discuss that. You guys can, but just from a purely practical standpoint, at least in the movie and in the book, as soon as they had what was the semblance of a working prototype, what you might call the alpha or beta version of this product, they immediately killed everybody who knew anything about it, all their experts, as if anything that engineers ever produce in the first shot doesn't need to be supported or updated or revised. So this just makes terrible. I can see now why the rebellion, despite their horrible, outnumbered how they were able to succeed so well against the Empire. It's just bad system management here.
It's like they killed everyone after what I assumed was a successful test fire, yet the plot is without Galen they can't complete it. And I'm like, what? Why'd you kill everybody then? Or why does the next movie exist if you already successfully test fired death lasers? Krennic, what are you doing?
He's trying to get promoted, man. He's super focused on those rank squares.
But unfortunately, he has the opposite of plot armor, which is must be evil.
That's right. It really was.
So what kind of problems do you think? I mean, so you worked on the Death Star super laser. You've just been killed. What kind of practical problems is the Empire going to be running across here?
I mean, they have unprotected ventilation shafts and stuff they should have dealt with.
This project has all kinds of problems. Early in the book, they're like, "Oh, we got this sketch, but it's half made. So guess what? We're just gonna start building the thing. We're gonna
That's a
put
great
this
point.
big laser focuser here, but we don't even know what it is because we haven't even designed the weapon
Just leave
technology."
space for the giant dish. It'll work. It'll be great.
This is a horrible way to. This is not engineering at all. Okay, I don't think that this was what this research, the back research for this book, could have been done. Give it another 15 minutes, all right, and think it through seriously. By the time they put out the alpha version of the laser, they hadn't even wrote the manual yet. So there were all kinds of problems here with this story.
What should they have done? You're looking for a more concrete, Death Star plan first?
Absolutely. They should have tested out all the components in advance of building the dart. This isn't the F-35, all right? You can't build the thing and then test it.
That is literally what they did.
That is literally what they did.
Empire's F-35.
It really is. And you know what? You can't stop it. It's going to happen.
Hey, they did a pretty good job.
Project.
If Galen hadn't sabotaged the designs, it would have been fine, and they would have blown up Yavin 4, and they would have won. It would have been exactly what they wanted.
What do you think about this, Vincent? Weigh in here.
So I've been kind of holding back a little bit because I am not really that big of a fan of this book. I think I'm kind of taking the John perspective of the last book. There are a lot of loopholes which I've been thinking about, and some of them are related to the fact that these characters are not acting in the most intelligent ways. Whereas they found an entire empire based off of intelligence technology, and they go murder all their engineers. That's a good point. Didn't they also steal? Did they even pick up on the fact that they stole these plans from the rebellion in the first place, or something like that? Or we think that the rebels are creating this orbital platform. We need to beat them to it. We've gotten their plans, and we're building it, and we're trying to build it faster. Did anyone else get that kind of theme in the book? I thought it was mentioned.
Oh
that
yeah,
was the first half. That was the whole justification for it, basically.
Right? And I'm just like,
They
okay, so
stole
you
it.
basically stole someone's plans. How the hell were they supposed to make the laser part if you didn't even know how to make the laser part? And everyone's like, it's like a comedy of errors. And I'm just like, and the whole mention of the Republic having, or the future Republic having the original Death Star plans, it's like, then why the hell did they need to steal the plans back in Rogue One? It's fucking their plans in the beginning. Why don't they just use the original plans? It's just go and destroy it.
Well, it wasn't the rebels' plans. They stole it off of Geonosis. They stole it from the Geonosians, because it would belong to support the Separatists.
Yeah.
The Separatists are not really the rebellion. I think
two different things.
Why go to the Empire's super stronghold with databanks in Rogue One to steal it when you could have gone to the Geonosians, and gotten ideas for if they're actually building it in X Y Z.
Well,
It's
isn't that all the stuff they hint in? This book hints back to the prequels, where it's somehow the Empire mysteriously got these plans, whereas in the movies they show doesn't Dooku just straight up give them to the Emperor? Or, the future Emperor. Isn't that how they get it?
Yeah, that is the tie back from the films, because the Geonosians / Separatists have them. Dooku takes them, gives them to the Republic. Then they start building it in, as discussed in Catalyst, because they think that the Separatists might have one too. So that's just a reason to build giant death machine.
It's so random because they're strip mining entire planets. It's the Separatists don't have entire planets with protected zones, stripped to make even something like this. It's there's these logical arguments where I'm just I will withhold my disbelief, but I really don't I love the world of Star Wars. Don't get me wrong. I love the way it works. I love all the various cultures and stuff like that. But sometimes people kind of brute force and kind of twist the world to kind of fit various themes. And I feel that's kind of what happens when you have fan fiction. People make things happen because they wouldn't it be so cool if this happened? And then they justify it somehow. And you're no, that's not a very good justification for the path you're going down. But I'll follow you or I'll close the book because it's fan fiction. But in this case, I can't close the book because it's canon. So I'm oh god, okay, so I have to follow you down this rabbit hole and how you justify all this type of stuff. So I don't know. I love Star Wars, but mainly the original ones, and I'm not a fan of 1, 2, and 3. I love 4, 5, and 6. I love the end of Rogue One where it ties it back to 4. But I am kind of selective in my love.
Yeah. Basically, it's I love the idea that this is the book justifying, like, here's the politics and the practicalities of actually making and designing the Death Star, where, like, 3 movies later, they're just building another one outside of Endor with who knows what politics and all this stuff. It's just like, no, we just got another one. It's great.
I think you just described the plot of Catalyst 2, a Return of the Jedi story.
But where's Krennic? He already got fired on by giant Death Star laser. He's going to be doing it this time.
Literally obliterated by the laser.
At that point, this is where it's like, I simultaneously felt like I need to know more about the expanded universe, and the book also justified the reason I personally don't really get into the expanded universe. I'm like, I probably need to watch Rebels and Clone Wars and all the stuff and like read the comics to really know what's going on. And I'm just like, no, this is the reason I just go see the movies, because like the movies can stand alone for the most part.
Wow, all the hate. So that's actually
say I'm lazy.
It can be both of those things.
It's like after they write the book, should we kill all the writers like the Empire does? Is that what happens?
Slightly illegal.
Don't do that.
We have not turned into the Empire technically yet.
No Death Stars yet. Nobody has built prototype giant lasers for us to be like, yeah, it's good enough.
But anyway, so that actually ties us into the next topic here, which is how this book and Rogue One, the film, relate to each other. So we've touched on this a little bit already, but I mean basically, the main thing I liked about the novel is it fills out Lyra as a character. Because in the film, she's in it for 5 minutes, is a terrible shot, just shoots Orson in the shoulder and dies immediately. Whereas here, I feel like she's basically the only smart non-Imperial person, aside from maybe Passover.
Well, yeah, because at this point, it's like, surprise, surprise, Empire's bad. And so the one person who's super skeptical, of course, is the only person who knows what's actually going on.
Yeah, I mean, there's other stuff here too. Like, there's you get to see more between what's going on with Krennic and Tarkin. Like, there's actually some
that part was fun.
So, but what did you guys think about the relationship between the book and the film?
I feel that the book and the film, that they're 2 screenplays, that the investors at Lucasfilm and at Disney did a good job, and they invested in Rogue One as opposed to in the book. Because I think that the book has a lot of plot holes. They spent a lot more time vetting and looking over all the potential holes in Rogue One, and I think they did a good job of filling them and making it kind of a believable storyline. Rogue One is like the younger brother, which kind of helps out, or Catalyst is like the little younger brother, which kind of set there to help out Rogue One and kind of backfill a little bit of story, but I don't think it's particularly well done.
Yeah, I thought the problem is it's not really its own, it kind of is, but it's mostly just detail filler for the setting behind Rogue One, which is already just kind of detail filler for the setting behind The New Hope.
So it's it's like the fill-in for the fill-in. Do you feel like you guys feel like this book doesn't really hold up on its own?
I mean,
I think it's a good book. It's a good story. I think it pairs well with the movie because I thought I'm with the same with Vince here because I really like the Star Wars universe. I felt like the movie was really cool to watch. I thought the movie story was a little weak, and I thought that the book made it a little stronger because the two together made just a little bit more of a complete picture, even if that picture wasn't very crafty. They could, I think they could have made it a little more crafty than they did.
I feel like it's kind of almost exactly what I could imagine at its most basic. It's just all right, they actually just filled it in, and that was about it. There wasn't anything that really surprised me. Just the Haas Ovid plot lines and Lyra were the only things where I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, sure. It's not stuff that I could kind of already imagine just from who the characters were in the settings beforehand.
All right, fair enough. So I guess technically, according to Disney, this book is canon. Is that a good thing?
I think I said this before you even read the books or saw Rogue One. I was like, okay, when Disney bought Star Wars, they got rid of all the expanded universe, and it seems like now they're just kind of doing that to make their own expanded universe, and I'm just And
We're old Star Wars fans, and we liked it when we had our old extended universe.
yeah, I'm saying I was just as indifferent to the expanded universe then as I am indifferent to Disney's expanded universe.
All right, Charlie is indifferent. How about you, John?
I like the movies. I just wanted to see the movies.
All right.
So Charlie, you vote for apathy. That's where we started this whole. I'm pretty sure that's how we started this whole podcast.
Yeah, it's entertaining enough. I don't feel like I wasted my time or anything on like some of the opinions we've had.
It's part of canon. I don't see. Do I think it should deserve to be in canon? Sure, why not? I don't know. I'm sure there's plenty of loopholes and other problems with the Star Wars universe. I've been blissfully ignoring all the rest of those. I'll be fine. I'll live letting this be canon.
I guess the way you put it, it's kind of like, yeah, it's saying like, yeah, it's canon, and like something existed to lead to this. It might as well be this. So
good enough.
Yeah.
Good enough.
All right, Vincent, what do you think? Is it a good thing that this book is canon?
I feel like the original three, which is like movies 4, 5, and 6, being straight canon, best thing ever. Like you watch those movies, there's nothing really extraneous. Everything's really interesting. Like, any holes that are left out are not plot holes. They're more like, I really wish I knew more about, the Mandalorians. I really wish I knew more about Jabba the Hutt and stuff like that. The first 3 movies, this book, and Rogue One, I feel like Rogue One is probably the one that I'm the least offended by. Jar Jar Binks and like pod racing and the rest of that stuff and midichlorians probably offend me more than Catalyst does. Catalyst and Rogue One, at least in terms of technology, are like still reasonably set in the world of movies 4, 5, and 6. And so the continuity in my brain is like, at least it's not forcing the world like really, really vigorously, and it's not like crazy kind of like think. But I think that the holes just make it so much more weak that like I'm just not really a big fan of Catalyst. I could let Rogue One slide into canon, but for me, like I will probably only ever really remember the end of Rogue One, 4, 5, and 6. Not just because I'm an old timey, I'm like an old fart and I can't like make room for new stuff. It's more like I love new stuff and I love certain parts of the books and the movies, but when they throw in random stuff that like really offends me, I'm just like, oh god, like I'm done with this. Like, like, I love this world too much to have you introduce Jar Jar Binks and bouncing like, EMP balls and stuff like that to really respect you or this movie or your ideas anymore. I'm going back to my old school stuff.
Let's be honest, Stavros had the best way of describing why Rogue One is so much fun.
I don't even remember.
You just, after you saw it, you're like, was it good or was it just New Hope porn?
Yeah, it is that. Definitely that. All right, so let's. We're kind of been talking about this already, but final thoughts in the last couple of minutes we have. So for me, I enjoyed this book not because of Krennic and not because of the Orsos and not even because of Tarkin, but because it kind of paints the picture of how the Republic transitioned into the Empire, kind of giving the geopolitical flavor to what's going on during that time frame. So for me, that makes it good. The plot, it's okay. Krennic's kind of, like Charlie says, kind of jumps between like cartoon villain and super smart conniving bad guy. But I thought it was all right. I like it mostly for the flavor.
I liked it, but I will, perfectly accept the criticism that I might like it, mostly because it's about engineers, and I'm an engineer, and I thought a book about what I do is really boring to other people, but not necessarily to me, so that's fine.
I thought it was just a book about killing the people who do what you do.
It can be both of those things.
It can be both of those things. I got to complain in my head about all the mistakes that they made, and when it comes down to it, I thought it was a credible.
John,
it was a credible addition to the movie.
John, do you just like it because it shows your like managing overlords as evil bastards out to ruin these poor engineers?
Well, you know engineers really well. We're very distrusting folks, so that makes total sense.
All right, Charlie? What are your final thoughts here?
It's just like if you really want to know this stuff, like I would say it's fine, and it fills in the details and that sort of stuff. I wasn't super excited about knowing all the stuff, and I was entertained enough. So it's kind of the I don't know.
Ambivalence, got it.
It was fine.
All right, Vincent, how about you?
Yeah.
I would say that the book is kind of like a really, really nice steak with a few drops of cyanide on top. Like, I really wish I could cut out the bad parts. And there are parts of it which are delicious, and I love the idea of it. Like John said, I love the idea of engineers being the heroes. Like, there's not a clone, there's not a droid, there's not a Jedi, there's not, like, barely even any stormtroopers or, like, Star Destroyers to be had in the book. There's not even a Death Star, which is, like, the topic of virtually every single Star Wars, like, movie. And you're not, like, a third Death Star or fourth Death Star popping up, like, oh, God, just, like, come up with a new plot. Had a new plot. But, like, sentient kyber crystals, which, like, you know, which, like, the Death Star is like a big lightsaber that shoots into planets, and, like, you know, kind of weird, like, blackmailing of wives, and, like, you already got what you wanted and you're making things worse. Like, there's just these few drops of cyanide that just kind of make me like, oh, I just want to spit it out. Like, I just can't do it. So my vote is no, Ned, because I love, it's like seeing something you love get pooped on. Like, I don't really like seeing it. It just makes me
Look, literally pooped on Vincent's opinion of Star Wars.
Don't watch any of the movies. Look away.
All right. Well, on that note, I think we're wrapping up this episode. So, of course, if anyone has feedback or suggestions on book we should read or discuss, you can reach us at subplotofcoursepodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at subplotpodcast. Yes, we do in fact read them. And for next month's episode, we're going to be talking about United States of Japan, which looks like a World War II alternate history narrative by Peter Tiras.
always favorite, mechas.
That's right.
Yay! Why wouldn't you want people-sized robots punching things? I mean, not people-sized robot, people-shaped robots. Ah.
That's enough.
That's for next week. Thanks, everyone.